Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Krikras Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show, bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Betty and Diana Master as Namibia continues to mourn and prepares to bid farewell to the third president of the Republic, Dr. Hage G. Geingob, who sadly passed away on the 4th of February. Dignitaries have already started flying in, and there's a buzz around the city, understandably so. And this week, the nation gets to pay its final respects.
Understandably so. Now moving right along, what you can expect in today's broadcast: South Africa taps contingency reserves to limit rising debt. Senegal releases hundreds of political prisoners, and John Hlophe impeached by Parliament. We'll also be bringing you news from Zimbabwe a little later on in the show with Talent Kore. But for now, we'll be taking a quick ad break.
On behalf of the National Road Safety Council and all stakeholders in the road safety subsector, I extend our deepest and heartfelt condolences to the former First Lady, Madam Monica Geingob, the bereaved family, the relatives, friends, and the entire Namibian nation on the sudden passing of our beloved President, His Excellency Dr. Hage Gottfried Geingob. His leadership, resilience, and firm belief in systems, institutions, and processes will forever be kept and cherished in our hearts, as well as his belief in unity, inclusivity, and equality. I, on behalf of the National Road Safety Council and all stakeholders in the road safety subsector, join the rest of the nation in mourning the passing of our distinguished leader. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
Getting into our top story, South Africa's government will draw down $8 billion over the next 3 years from contingency reserves held at the central bank to limit the rising debt, the National Treasury said yesterday. Africa's most industrialized economy has barely grown in more than a decade, with rising debt servicing costs eating up a growing share of the national budget. The bleak economic backdrop is looming large over a general election due on May the 29th that could see the governing African National Congress Party lose its parliamentary majority for the first time since the end of apartheid 30 years ago. Presenting the 2024 budget, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana said the unusual move to draw down 150 billion rand from the gold and foreign exchange contingency reserve account would not compromise the central gains and losses on the country's foreign currency reserve transactions.
Now, Senegal's Senegal's Justice Minister Aissata Tall Sall has announced the release of nearly 400 protesters from prison. They were arrested and imprisoned during the political demonstrations of March 2021 and June 2023. Sall did not indicate whether opposition leader Ousmane Sonko and presidential candidate Bassirou Diomaye Faye would be released. The minister said the release of the political prisoners was aimed at easing tensions in the country. Political demonstrations in Senegal have often resulted in arrests and deaths. Most recently, 3 people died in the country during protests over the cancellation of the country's 25th February elections. The Justice Minister said investigations were ongoing to determine those responsible.
Now in South Africa, Western Cape Judge John Hlophe has become the first judge to be impeached in South Africa since the dawn of democracy. The previous judge was removed from the bench in 1910. Hlophe's removal was based on the recommendation of the Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Justice and Correctional Services, which handled his impeachment process after the Judicial Service Commission found the judge guilty of gross misconduct. In the National Assembly sitting yesterday, the committee's chairperson Bulelani Magwanishe spoke of the importance of the judiciary's independence, saying courts needed to function without interference or influence from others.
Now, Burkina Faso's military junta has suspended the issuance of export permits for artisanal and semi-merchandised gold and other precious commodities with immediate effect, it said. The suspension follows the need to clean up the sector and reflects the government's desire to better organize the marketing of gold and other precious substances, it said in a statement dated February 20th. It did not say how long the suspension would be in place. Mining groups who have materials to export are invited to reach out to the National Society for Precious Commodities commodities for compensation, it added. Gold is Burkina Faso's main export, accounting for 37% of total exports in 2020, and mining is a leading source of jobs. But a rampant Islamist insurgency and political instability has hindered exploration and dented gold output in recent years, causing several mines to shut down and others to produce less.
Now, South Korean hospitals turned away some patients and delayed surgeries on Tuesday, as trainee doctors stopped working in protest against medical training reforms. Almost 6,500 doctors submitted their resignations, nearly half the junior workforce, with 1,600 walking off the job, according to the Health Ministry figures. But South Korea's President Yoon Suk-yeol said the government would not back down over the necessary reforms, which he described as an essential measure to prepare for caring for the country's fast-aging population. The training reforms call for a 65% increase in the number of students admitted to medical schools. Those have been our top stories on Africa. Good morning. After the break, we talk to Talent Gore, starting with the memorial service in Zimbabwe honoring the late Dr. Hage G. Gengob.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
Hello and welcome to today's Sports Rep Show.
I am your host, Jesse Jackson Kauraifa. In replay, Namibia, who had won the toss for the first time on this tour.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, starting off with tennis news, both on the WTA for women's and
Now, solemn memorial service in Zimbabwe bids late Namibian President Dr. Hage Gengob farewell. Here to give us more details, Talent Gore. Talent, Mamkase.
Tamka Dukana Mamkau, Mamkase Africa. So on Monday, Zimbabwe held a memorial service for the late Namibian President Hage Gengob. The service was attended by ambassadors and also top government officials. Speaking at the memorial service, Foreign Affairs Minister said the Namibian leader consistently displayed and practiced solidarity with Zimbabwe until his death. He said that our dear brother and comrade unapologetically denounced and called for the removal of unilateral and illegal sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe by some Western countries. So, someone was also in attendance, the Namibian ambassador to Zimbabwe said that the love that Zimbabwe has showed Namibians during this period of grief was tremendous. He also said that when the late president passed on, President Mnangagwa was one of the first to express his condolence in the early hours thereafter. They received condolences messages, and also the President Emerson Mnangagwa went to the embassy to write in the condolences book. So he said that it is quite unfortunate that we had to witness the passing of our dear president. They were not expecting such. So hundreds of Zimbabweans were gathered at the Memorial Park bidding their farewell to President Hage Gengob.
All right, Talent. Do you know if it's confirmed that President Mnangagwa will attend the burial this weekend?
Yes, President Emerson Mnangagwa will be in attendance this weekend in Namibia.
All right, thank you for that. Now, Zimbabwe commemorates the Robert Mugabe National Youth Day. You must understand the irony for me, Talent. As a 33-year-old, Robert Mugabe was old all my life. But let's talk about the Robert Mugabe Youth Day.
Yes, every year Zimbabweans celebrate the Robert Mugabe National Youth Day on 21 February. You find out that when he was alive, on the 21st of February, it was his birthday. So he always held celebrations with the youth and young children. So when he passed on, the government adopted that day as the National Youth Day, whereby youth will be celebrating and they'll be showcasing their projects, their talents. And yesterday, President Emerson Mnangagwa was the guest of honor at the National Youth Day in Masvingo. You find out that the youth will be denouncing drugs. As you can see in that picture, there's a poster written, "Drug abuse kills you slowly." So this is the main event for the youth. They'll be showcasing what they are doing, and also they'll be denouncing some of the practices that are happening in Zimbabwe. As you find out that in Zimbabwe, there's a high rate of drug abuse and also early child marriages. So the youth in particular, the spotlight will be on them. They'll be denouncing all those, and they'll be celebrating and showcasing their talents, showcasing what they are doing, and also speaking to the president, telling him what they want from the government, in particular, what the government needs to do to uplift the youth in the country. So this year, President Emerson Mnangagwa was urging the youth to be vocal and to take part in nation building, and he also denounced the use of drugs amongst the youth. He said that they should not partake in drugs, as these are killing the youth in particular.
All right, now, Talent, we understand that hundreds of houses in Harare's Mulberry suburb are facing imminent demolition due to illegal construction on state land.
Yes, hundreds of houses in Harare's suburb Mulberry, they are facing demolition after right now there are a lot of houses that are being built on greenways, on state land in particular. So the government is saying that we did not approve any houses to be built on state land. So there are going to be demolitions which are going to take place. Already there are some illegal structures. As for me, I stay in Melbourne and I witnessed it firsthand. There are some buildings which were actually destroyed, which were demolished, and they say that they are going to come again because they did not finish. So they're going to be demolishing these houses that were built on state land, and some of these houses, or rather stands, they were parceled out by land barons, and the government or the city of Harare is aware of such. So they're carrying out demolitions. You find out that earlier in December last year, in Waterfalls, there were also some demolitions which happened there, because right now anyone who has land is just passed out to anyone. Land barons in particular, they are just selling land to anyone. They're even selling state land. If they see that this land is not occupied or it doesn't have a person, they'll just take that land and they'll sell it. So the government is saying that we did not parcel out state land or even council land. So we want to get rid of those people who have invaded those spaces, because there are some spaces which are not meant to be built on, in particular wetlands. So they're saying that they are going to demolish those houses because it's not safe for people to build on those lands.
It is very interesting because building doesn't take a day, Talent. So, I feel like from the information you shared that they are aware of this. They see this building happening. It feels like no one is monitoring these situations, and they sort of step up maybe sometimes years later. It just makes you wonder how much, diligence is being applied to the process itself. It's another form of land reform, I guess, but in the suburbs. Thank you, Talent, for bringing us the news stories.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
It's always good to have you on Africa. Good morning.
We'll now take a look at the weather predictions before we return with economic news.
In economic news, Nigeria's tanker drivers ended a strike to protest rising operational costs after agreeing to an increase in freight charges with fuel marketers following talks, a union official said yesterday. The Nigerian Association of Road Transport Owners, which groups thousands of truck owners and drivers responsible for distributing fuel nationwide, called the action on February the 19th. It is demanding an increase in freight charges due to rising operational costs after a recent second devaluation of the naira currency in under a year and the state of the country's roads.
Now, Mozambican public service workers in management positions will not be able to claim payment for overtime in 2024, and the rest cannot be paid more than 1/6 of their monthly salary for overtime worked, the government has determined. The measure appears in the government document that establishes the rules for implementing the 2024 economic and social plan and state budget and determines the reinforcement of the control mechanisms for the payment over time, which can only happen accorded to superior authorizations when weighty reasons justify them. There's no place for the payment of overtime to employees who hold positions of management leaders and trust, the document to which LUSA had access today establishes.
All right, those have been our economic news stories. We'll head on over to the indicators just before Ari brings us the sport.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with tennis news first. It is firstly news from the women's WTA and also the men's Rio Open that's taking place at the moment. Firstly, the women's tournament in Dubai. Big news there is number 2 seed Aryna Sabalenka. She's out of the tournament in the round of 32, and she had a bye in the first round, so that's in effect her first round that she plays. She lost to Donna Vekic. She's from the Czech Republic, and the score there was 6-7, 6-3, and then 6-love in the third set. It is a big loss for Aryna Sabalenka. She a few weeks ago won the Australian Open, in fact defended the title in the Australian Open, but took a break since winning the Australian Open, but lost now in the second round of Dubai. Better result for number 1 seed, that is Iga Swiatek. She had a tough game against Sloane Stephens of the United States. Sloane Stephens also showing good form recently, but it's Iga Swiatek winning that game 6-4 and 6-4. And then also number 3 seed, Coco Gauff of the United States. Also she's through to the next round, to the round of 16. She beat Elizabeth Coconeto, and the score there was 6-1 and 7-5. Then to the men's side of world tennis, it is the ATP Tour Rio Open that's taking place, and the news there is Stan Wawrinka. He lost to Faustino Diaz Acosta, and he lost 7-5 and 6-4. And then number 8 seed, he is through to the next round. That's Sebastian Ofner. He beat Gianni Munar 6-3 and 6-1. The number 1 seed in the Rio Open is Carlos Alcaraz of Spain. He's the number 2 seed in ranking in the world at the moment. Continuing international sports news with Formula 1 racing news. The first race will be on the 2nd of March, Bahrain. Much anticipated first race. At the moment, all the racing teams are in Bahrain, where the first race will be for 3 days of testing. News from Bahrain is that Max Verstappen in his Red Bull being the fastest on day 1, but it's still too early to say. There's 2 more days of testing, and Max Verstappen looking for a 4th consecutive world title, and in 2023 he dominated, winning 21 of the 22 races. In this year's season, there will be 26 races altogether. It's a long season. It will start on the 2nd of March in Bahrain, followed on the 9th of March in Saudi Arabia. Then the third race of the year will be on the 24th of March. That will be in Australia. And the last race of the season will be the 6th of December at the end of the year. That will be in Abu Dhabi. And to conclude today's international sports news, it is soccer news from the English Premier League. A midweek game that was played. Manchester City at home, they beat Brentford by 1-0. It was a tough game for them, and they only scored the winning goal in the 71st minute, and that was Erling Haaland that scored the winning goal. And Manchester City looking for the record 4th consecutive title in the English Premier League. It was all the teams have now played 25 games, and it's Manchester City just 1 point behind Liverpool. At the moment, Liverpool's got 57 league points, Manchester City 56, then followed by Arsenal on 25 and Aston Villa on 49. So all the teams have played 25 games. They need to play 38 games in the season, so 13 games left for all of them. A big game coming up for Manchester City will be on the 10th of March. That is when they travel to Liverpool, and that will be probably at that time the top of the table clash that will in a big way determine who can win the season. That's international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
You're still with Africa. Good morning. For those of you that are just joining us, here are the news highlights.
All right, so let's have a look at the news highlight stories. I think we might have a bit of a technical issue, but that's precisely why we have the tablets. South Africa taps contingency reserves in order to limit rising debt. Burkina Faso suspends export permits for small-scale gold production.
And Nigerian fuel tanker union in strike after agreeing to higher freight costs.
All right, those have been our stories on Africa. Good morning from Diana Master and Ashwin Berry. Suraja Kanaka.